To set the scene, I want you to pretend that this trophy right here is not a trophy for the best cadet at Bronigador in 2004, presented to yours truly, but instead that it's a prize for something a little less impressive. A Nobel Prize. I mean, they're pretty nice, but there's only one of these. And yes, this was given out in 2004, but today we need to go back to 1974, to Stockholm, Sweden, and more specifically, a packed banquet hall, filled to the rafters with some of the brightest minds in the world, all being hosted by the Swedish royal family as part of this year's annual Nobel Prize Awards. And as is tradition, the recipients of the awards stand up to give speeches.
I would like to propose a toast.
Our award, the Sveriges Riksbank Prize in Economic Sciences, has been given to this man, Friedrich August von Hayek. He's sharing it with his friend, Gunnar Myrdal, in what must be one of the proudest moments in both of their careers. Friedrich stands up to address the royal family in the room filled with academic peers, and he says this: "I must confess that if I had been consulted whether to establish a Nobel Prize in economics, I should have decidedly advised against it. Thanks for the award, but it's a bad idea." Just dented my floor. The full transcript of the speech is below, but you could summarise it as him saying, look, it's dangerous to put economists on a pedestal like this. They will be tempted to comment on things they shouldn't, and people will probably listen. Only a person who truly understands the impossible task of predicting which way the economy will go would have the humility to stand there with a prize for understanding economic fluctuations in their hand and say, you probably shouldn't listen to people who try to predict which way the economy will fluctuate. Mr. von Hayek was a rare breed who sadly passed away in 1992. If he was still alive now, I wonder what he'd have to say about all the predictions people make today.
But joining us right now to talk about it.
Joining us to talk more about that.
Joining us now is joining us to talk about, and this is going to be pretty confusing.
I don't really think.
I think that.
I think I would have.
I think that.
I do think this.
These are not new ideas.
When I just made the remark about von Hayek being disappointed about the number of people predicting things today, you would be excused for thinking that I meant, just this general time period. But no, I meant today. What I mean by that is, all of the clips that I've just used in the intro sequence were taken from CNBC Television's YouTube channel, from content posted on Friday the 17th of February. 55 videos worth. Every single one of those videos contains some sort of expert making some sort of prediction about which way something is going to go. It's called the prediction industry, and as Friedrich foresaw, it has got really out of hand. You don't even need a trophy anymore. All you need is a webcam and a link to the finance industry, and someone somewhere will put you on a platform so you can just spout your guesses at the world. And those guesses, well, they're consistently wrong. Prakash Lugani at the IMF analysed the accuracy of economic forecasters and stated that they'd failed to predict 148 of the last 150 recessions. What's even funnier about that is, it's coming from an organisation that has a track record at being terrible at predicting when recessions are going to happen. So before we get into why we give a platform to so many people who just get it wrong all the time, I think the obvious question we need to ask is, why do the experts get it wrong in the first place?
It's a conspiracy, man!
In order to explain why so many forecasts on the economy, the stock market, or even the football scores are so hard to get right, I want to introduce you to the work of Dr. Michael Berry.
It's an interesting question.
It's just a beautiful coincidence that his name is similar to Michael Burry, the guy who predicted the financial crisis, but we'll discuss him in a moment. Dr. Berry didn't want to predict the economy, he was more of a snooker man. If you're anything like me, when you play snooker or pool, you just twat the ball and hope something happens. But professional players have a little bit more finesse about it. They're not just trying to hit a ball into a pocket, they're trying to forecast where all the other balls will land after that as well. Dr. Berry wanted to work out how many impacts or collisions of a ball a snooker player could realistically predict before it just became impossible. So Berry concluded that after 9 collisions, the player needs to take into consideration the impact of their own gravitational force on the balls, which is affecting their movement because they're stood close to the table. He then worked out that if the balls somehow collided 54 times, the player would need to consider the weight of every object in the universe. Berry's mathematical experiment shows how complexity rises really quickly when we try and predict the knock-on effects of even simple outcomes, like hitting a ball into another. So, question for you. If a snooker player can't see past the impacts of 9 balls, what chance does even the most gifted person on the planet have of accurately predicting which way the economy goes, and/or the stock market as a result? It's the equivalent of hitting a snooker ball into a million other balls and trying to guess the place of where all of them will land. Making accurate predictions about where the economy will land is hard. It's very hard, but I think we all knew that. So why are so many people convinced they can? Before we look at that, I want to tell you about today's video sponsor, Huel.
I will show you how to make one.
Cobweb will be here, no doubt. Yeah, always. Hello, mate. You okay? What are you up to? Should we go make a Huel? You can have a little cat soup. Yeah, let's go. So, today we're going to go with the vanilla flavour. So this is the Huel Black Edition. It comes in 9 flavours, but I like the vanilla and chocolate. I'll sometimes hit a chocolate at night when I'm craving something sweet. Stops me from dominating a family-sized bar of dairy milk. It's really easy to make. Just take the shaker provided, add 2 scoops of Huel. The Black Edition contains 40 grams of protein per serving. Make sure the lid is on tight and then shake it. It says for 10 seconds, but until you think it's done. You could also use a blender if you like. I think out of all the types of Huel, the Black Edition is my favourite in terms of taste and texture. Can you see a red mark on my head? I just headbutted the Huel cupboard. Not ideal. Lay on the floor for about a minute in pain, which, funnily enough, is about twice as long as it takes me to make a Huel. So get your Huel using the link in the description, or I'll pin one for you in the comments section. Thanks, Huel. Now, back to the video. Now, at first, in my search for answers, I went looking down the evolution route. Maybe the answers lie in random patterns, you know, the whole Jesus on toast, faces in the cloud sort of logic, I guess. Are forecasters seeing patterns that they then present to the world? Nassim Nicholas Taleb, who wrote the book Black Swans, discussed in an episode of Freakonomics Radio that the ability to identify random patterns where there are none was useful for survival. Is that a wild jaguar over there in that bush, or am I just seeing things? It's better to have that level of curiosity than not, because the guy who doesn't see random patterns, he just gets eaten. Plonk that evolutionary trait in today's world, and we're seeing patterns in everything from economic data to slices of banana. But that doesn't explain it, does it? They might see the patterns, and they might be convinced by them. But if seeing a pattern was all that mattered, we would have every tea leaf or tarot card reader on CNBC making calls on if Twilio will tank or not. Now what we have instead is experts, and that got me thinking. The prediction industry exists because there is a demand for high-quality expert opinion on which way things are heading. In fact, there is no end of demand for those services. For essentially any decision we ever make, we would love to have an expert opinion to say, this is the right decision. You know the case if you order food in a restaurant. I would love for the chef just to come out and be like, look mate, this is the best meal I make here. So you can see why as humans, we want these expert opinions, especially when it comes to the matters of money. All this demand for opinion, especially in uncertain times like the ones we face right now, produces what Philip Tetlock, author of Super Forecasting, calls fake supply. What we want is high quality forecasts and predictions for someone to tell us where the snooker balls will land. But what we get are loose guesses and weak commitments. Philip points to the use of the word could.
The economy could remain the driving factor.
Could. Some of that radioactivity could carry in the atmosphere to the west coast of the United States.
There could be an interesting battle on the coast.
This could happen, that could happen. It's all very loose, no talk of numbers or probability. If it rains tomorrow, I could get abducted by aliens. I know that sounds ridiculous, but if it doesn't happen and anyone pulls me up on it, I'm just going to say, well, I never said I would. I just said I could. But I wouldn't make a bold prediction like that because I'm just worried about looking like an idiot. Which, again, gets me thinking. If economists missed 148 of the last 150 recessions, why don't they feel like idiots? I wouldn't have the brass to sit on CNBC and say, I think this is going to happen next. Because imagine if it all went wrong. You'd be ridiculed, you'd be laughed at, or at least you wouldn't be invited back on, right?
Me, let's try to make some money!
12 months ago, a post hit Reddit in which the user asked, should we listen to Jim Cramer's predictions? The analysis showed that Cramer in the last 5 years has made over 21,000 predictions on which way stock prices would move. That is an average of 20 predictions per episode. The post rightfully questions how one man could have so many opinions on so many companies in so many sectors. Cramer is so infamous for his volume of forecasting and his often changing opinion that there are funds that now exist that do the opposite of what he says. This guy is literally the butt of so many jokes online, yet still, he rolls up every day, makes his forecasts and his predictions to an audience of over 350,000 viewers. How Cramer can do this speaks to the incentives that exist around forecasts and the very core of the problem we're discussing here. Let's say you make a prediction and you get it right. You then have a very vested interest in letting the world know, letting people know, that you got your prediction correct. But if you get it wrong, who is on the other side of that, who is as actively motivated as you to let the world know that that is the case? Your motivation as someone who got it right is far bigger than individuals who want to point out that you got it wrong. Predictions are one industry on this planet where there's not really an accepted way of scoring people on their ability to predict. If I order a takeaway or a product from Amazon and it turns up and I don't like it, I just leave a bad review. If someone predicts that the stock market will fall amongst a sea of other predictions that day, no one has any real way of documenting and calling out that prediction so others can then easily see it. So what we have is a demand for high quality forecasts. We then have a media machine that wants your attention, and we have a load of experts in the middle who know they can go on TV, make a prediction, and they'll get some attention. If they're wrong, no punishment. And if they're right, they get bragging rights and potential infamy. For this reason, you could say that making as many predictions as possible is the best approach, because the world will forget the bad ones and remember the good. In fact, the more outlandish the prediction, the more sensational, the better. No one wants to listen to a guy on CNBC that goes, well, this year will just be like the last year. They want boom and bust, because just like the extreme clickbait you get on YouTube, that's what wins the click. Dr. Christina Fang did some fascinating research on this, into the motivation to make wild predictions in economic forecasts. She found that as humans, we tend to remember those who make big calls that paid off. Michael Burry. Not Berry and his snooker balls. This is Michael Burry, whose every word is analysed due to the fact that he called the 2008 financial crisis correctly, and since then has been living rent-free on every YouTube thumbnail ever due to this home run. Well, Christian Bale has, because Christian Bale's portrayal of Burry is more famous an image than Burry himself. I mean, who would have predicted that? So Fang's research showed that those who forecast and predict unlikely events like this tend to be bad predictors overall. In our study, an ability to call many extreme events correctly was an indication of poor judgment. In fact, the analyst with the largest number of accurate extreme forecasts had the worst forecasting record by far. I mean, it makes sense, right? Imagine you've got a mate who only bets on 100 to 1 odds, misses constantly, but then the one bet that he makes that pays off, he tells the whole world about it. People then go, maybe we should listen to this guy because he seems to know how to predict 100 to 1 bets. So what is the solution here? Well, it's simple really, and it has everything to do with Romanian witches. So I recently learned that witchcraft in Romania is a recognised profession. They literally pay income tax, their services are widely used, they even have political influence. After losing a 2009 election, former Foreign Minister Mircea Genoa accused President Băsescu of using the mystical power of the purple flame to influence the results. At their core, these witches are the purest form of forecaster. Their services are often used to make predictions about the future. So how do you make sure that legit witches are offering services and not just anyone? I can't believe I just said that sentence on a finance channel, but this is what it's come to, guys. Yeah, legit witches. You fine them or even throw them in jail if their opinions are wrong. Imagine if that sort of punishment existed for economics or stock market predictions. How many people would just shut the hell up and stop talking if they knew if they got it wrong, they would pay a fine or go to prison? Now, I don't think we should stifle conversation around the markets in this way. I mean, the witches of Romania cursed the Romanian government due to the proposal in 2011.
Toți oamenii din politic care sunt aici.
But a bit of accountability for the predictions you do make would be great, wouldn't it? I made this video today because in times as uncertain as this, people seek out the opinions of experts for reassurance and for guidance on what to do. How many people have listened to the opinions of someone and made a decision about investing because of it, or simply even just let it ruin their day? You could watch CNBC in the morning and think markets are going to do well. You could catch it in the evening and you could be convinced the world is going to end. So until we have an international ranking system for people's opinions, take the words of these so-called experts with a massive pinch of salt, because their opinions mean little. They're often wrong. The incentives to make them more sensational, to get attention exist, and there is no meaningful means of scoring who is good and who is bad at predicting things. So it's impossible to know who to listen to anyway. I mean, it's not like they're giving out trophies, is it?